Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. In our acceptance of the law of the new Aeon, we ask a question of pressing spiritual and material importance. How do we maximize freedom, that each soul can have the liberty needed to recognize itself as a star? Some say that we have it already, and on a purely spiritual level they are correct. No material circumstances, no matter how restrictive, can fully contain a soul. That said, this realization is surely cold comfort for our fellow stars in prison, fearing for their lives, scraping by under corporate and state oligarchy, victimized by hateful superstition, and so on and so on. Can we be so silly, so unfeeling as to tell our siblings to seek enlightenment without secure means of a dignified life? O gods of all time, let it not be so. There are enough New Age grifters going down that path, painting a veneer of spiritual justification over the rot of systemic evil. They tell survivors of disasters and misfortune that they brought it on themselves. They urge the exploited to adopt the mindset of their exploiters. No doubt they would have told the rebelling American colonists, the rebelling Haitian slaves, the South Americans inspired by Bolivar, the rebels and revolutionaries of all ages to simply send out vibrations of freedom into the universe. The family of New Age philosophies that insists on spiritual attainment regardless of our material conditions provides cover for the systems that define those conditions. Despite what their defenders will tell you, these systems are unaccountable to most of the people living under them, shaped by a small class of policymakers, fully owned and operated by an even smaller class of business interests. The closer to the top of the economic food chain you find yourself, the better your prospects for continued wealth and success, the more resources you can put toward your own spiritual development. Conversely, the more we have to struggle to meet our basic needs, the less we will be able to afford the relative luxury of spiritual work. As Thelemites, we can't afford to ignore these hard truths or write them off as mere facts of nature. Where is it written in stone that our society should be as we find it? How will we claim mastery over ourselves if our working and political lives are so largely out of our hands? Every day, the working people of the world, the vast majority, must break the great law of liberty simply to afford the means of survival. Every day, the world's armies and prisoners are ordered about like dogs, its students given over to petty dictators, its marginalized people trodden on or forgotten. And every day, the world is made less habitable by not one person's true will, but by the whims of the powerful for profit, enabled by the alienated labor of the masses. Neoliberal capitalism makes its workers into wage slaves and its masters into market automata, both states of being that mock the word and spirit of our law as much as they alienate the spirit and body of our work. We fail as pagans, as Thelemites, if we refuse to seek social freedom from these bonds as ardently as we each seek the individual freedom that enables knowledge and realization of our own true will. Every thought, object, and action has a material and a spiritual dimension. When we alter any portion of the world, either in accordance with our will, under duress, or mindlessly, we alter the spirit as well as the mundane substance. It is my contention that the spirits of the land, water, and air that sustain us, as well as the spirits of the places and things we encounter and alter in our lives and in our work, are counting on us to do our will as often as we can. For as we actualize our own potential, we help them to actualize theirs in a virtuous cycle. A gardener hired by a company to landscape an estate or an industrial park cannot freely collaborate with the spirits of the plants, the soil, the air, the water, the animals, and so on, in the way that a gardener whose will it is to work on the land autonomously. Alienated labor, performed at the whim of the market, on pain of hunger and death, does not only degrade our own spirits, but all the spirits that we touch, and all the beings affected by that labor in any way. Mindless acts are a toss of the dice. Stephen Jay Gould once wondered how many Einstein-level geniuses were effectively forced to waste their brilliance in hard labor for other people's profit. I am forced to wonder how many great seers, prophets, gurus, poets, witches, wizards, bards, conjure doctors, mediums, and magicians of all kinds have been squashed under that same heel. The great work of social animism is to propagate the law of the Aeon through the teaching and celebrating the sanctity of working according to one's true will, and to aid in the dismantling of all tyranny and exploitation. We seek to maximize the freedom of all people by reducing the time we need to spend creating and distributing the necessities, comforts, and refinements of life. We recognize willed work as sacred, and alienated work as blasphemous misuse of the sacred power of labor. While the present system continues, the social animist should work to reduce their own alienation and that of others, while also advocating the overthrow of business as usual for the sake of the planet and all the souls we share it with. We agree with the social ecologists that our being is becoming, but where Bookchin feared spirituality, and even nature-based spirituality, we view an animist relationship with the land and all the spirits essential to it as a peerless resource for seeking out our vision. We seek alliance with all unseen things as we struggle against the forces of the corporations and the state. Our vision is one of sustainable, equitable, and libertarian post-scarcity, to create that condition where the free development of each shall be the condition for the free development of all. Science fiction does our era a disservice when it posits the means for a more plentiful society somewhere in the future. We have the means now, but capitalism reserves them for the owner class and those lucky workers close enough to them to enjoy a fraction of their luxury. We could provide a generous standard of living subtly modified for sustainability, individual tastes, and cultural preferences for everyone on the planet, not one person left out. We could use the most effective technologies and techniques for industry and trade everywhere, not just where it's most profitable. We could throw massive resources into the hands of a federated network of scientists pushing the bounds of knowledge for everyone's benefit in a self-directed manner. We could use the same technologies that the gig economy uses to pay us a pittance for our time, to distribute helpful tasks among people in each neighborhood or township, distribute resources to meet our needs in less time and effort, give everyone a voice in everything they participate in, whether local or long distance. Post-scarcity is not a matter of waiting for something to happen that sets the current system right side up, but of sweeping aside the current system by any and all willed means. Dual power organizations. Getting out from under it on its own terms is wise for those who don't want to be so blatant. Intentional communities, eco-villages, neighborhood book clubs, informal potlucks, benefit concerts, food not bombs, critical mass bike rides, and a million other small actions that decolonize some part of your experience can and will get you closer to knowing and doing your true will. Lugh is the insular Celtic deity of craft, luck, light, and summer. He is called by his epithet Lamhfada, long-handed, because of his ability to turn his hand to any skill, any situation. His skill made him war chief of the Tuatha De Danann, the ancient gods of Ireland. He reigned in the stead of Nuada and Bresh in the Second Battle of Moytura. There he killed his own grandfather, Balor of the Baleful Eye, a monstrous Fomorian chieftain with an eye that could kill and was covered with a wood, brass, and lead cover when not in use. Lugh is the closest that I can imagine in Celtic lore to to the idea of the crowned and conquering child of Thelema. His birth involves a union of cosmic opposites, but unlike Bresh, who was corrupted by greed, Lugh strove for justice and self-determination for the Tuatha. With craft, diplomacy, and war, he organized the mass struggle that lifted the heavy labor burdens the Fomorians imposed, and recovered the Daigdas harp of the seasons, ensuring victory for the Tuatha Philbog alliance. In providing for one another's needs, doing our so-called productive work, and rising up against exploitation, we will all need to become ever more Lamhfada, ever more long-handed ourselves. Our goal for all is described by Marx in the Critique of the Gotha program, where we find ourselves doing various kinds of socially necessary work, but without becoming defined by any of that work. We might weave cloth but never be a weaver. We might fish or hunt but never be a fisher or a huntsperson, etc. This is the playing field where all souls can do their true will. A condition of post-scarcity underlies many of the monastic traditions of both East and West, and that provides us with a model of community that maximizes the spiritual potential of its members by cooperation on the essentials and comforts of life. The monks or nuns are able to spend much of their time praying or meditating because the rest of the time they work to keep the community going. One could run a Thelemic monastery on social animist principles. Calling it a commune is materially accurate, but belies the spiritual aim of the community. The new Aeon must learn these sacred technologies and ferment them in all communities of resistance. Blessed are all who quest to let everyone become a Lamhfada. Blessed are all who embody the long-handed God. A social animist grace before meals thanks the gods that the household worships, but focuses on the spirits of the plants and or animals being consumed, the labor it took to grow, raise, harvest, ship, prepare, serve, and clean up after. The blessing may be accepted by a delegate from the staff, if at a restaurant, and a blessing from the workers returned to the celebrants as an optional mark of reciprocity. Celebrating in the home, those that did the prep work and cooking may also receive and return such a blessing. A social animist wedding service also always recognizes the hard work of the event staff, caretakers, band, and so on, and blesses them for enabling the happy day. The workers can delegate an individual as before. The heart of our rituals and observances, which you are free to add to by any and all means, is to aid one's fellow beings in freeing themselves from capitalism and the state. And as we fight with all due force and fire in material ways, enumerated in numerous other places, so must we fight in the realm of the spiritual. The sacrifice of labor may be profaned from our will, but it is still noble even in these benighted times, and must be recognized at all times of celebration. We accept the law of the Aeon, and any gods and spirits who seem to call us along that path, along with spirits of place and shades of the dead. Fellowship with the whole natural world as our ground of being, our sacred play space, our stage of possibilities. Nothing can be absented wholly from nature, physical or spiritual. Labor is an up-leveled natural process, nature squared, worthy of worship whether its effort is successful or not, but most worshipable if unalienated, that is to say, willed, non-exploitative, that is to say, where the benefits go wholly to the community and those who did the work in the first place, and sustainable. Celebration invokes utopia. Better parties build better people. Celebrate the dead, heal the wounded, fight like hell for the living in the future. Reciprocity as a mark of unity. Organs do not trade nutrients or chemical electrical signals. They play with them in the ways best suited to keep us alive. If individual competition was so great, why do our innards act like such filthy commies? How can we believe in the preeminence of competition when there is no part of me that is not of the gods? To give and receive without the giver-receiver power dynamic, we must give up on recognizing artificial and arbitrarily or opportunistically defined hierarchies. Thus, unconstrained by need, we can enter into any kind of competitive or cooperative enterprise with the energy we have saved collaborating on the essentials. Our needs unify us with all of life as we understand it, and with the material and spiritual universe. We can use magic for liberation, and we better had. It is certainly being wielded to keep us oppressed, along with the material and social forces described in Marx, Engels, Kropotkin, Goldman, and many others. The mages and seers of capital will sneer at us as Roman centurions spat at Celtic druids. Our day will come, and our rebel ancestors, the ones the plutocrats suppressed and fought to forget, will strike with us every blow that folds the hot metal of the world into a design we craft in fellowship with one another and with all beings. For the realization of our wills, we must enact Lamhfada's struggle and borrow as much of his skill as we can to do so. We have a foe as dreaded as the Fomorians in the climate crisis and global oligarchy. But we shall do the work of Lugh and Daigda and MacLear, of the Morrigan, of Brigid, and the Kayach. We shall sow the seeds of social animism, tend them, and harvest the boundless bounties of our true wills. For the benefit of all beings whose labor helped me reach these revelations, let us say, Balasti Ompeda Abra. Love is the law, love under will.